Hi everyone, next build is an AMD rig for Tayla, also known as the Cosplay Girl. Has a huge following on Instagram, and we've decided to do a little bit of a collab and put together a gaming PC that's going to be not only a showpiece and fit in with her black and white theme at her place, but it's going to be a very good gaming rig, AMD based, into a Lian Li 011 Dynamic XL, another one. This is a white box. We're going to put in a single Samsung SATA M2, 1 terabyte, a WD 2 terabyte for the gaming storage, on top of a beautiful AMD X570 white theme. So high-end motherboard with some white fans, RGB fans, some wing boosts. The feature GPU is a brand new AMD RX 6800, sitting on top of a Ryzen7 CPU, featuring an Aquacomputer Duplex Cryos. Next, CPU waterblock. I'm going to put some cable mod cables. They do have a good looking outline, which just makes the whole build look a little bit more presentable, a lot more professional. A couple of Alpha Cool 360 copper radiators. I needed an extra fan to go in the rear, and I'm using a Corsair that I had in stock. 850 power supply, MSI, and it's a gold standard. 32 gig of RAM, 4x8 RGB of course, and white to match in with the profile. Going into an EKWB distro block. So all of the water running through this, and it has a pump attached to that as well. And to go on to the AMD RX 6800 GPU, we have an EK Quantum Vector GPU water block. I've got a backplate as well. I may change the color of that. This is actually a black backplate. We may change the color there, or even do some extra painting on it if we need to. So that's the actual product going into this box. It looks a lot, doesn't it, to actually fit into there, but it will be a gorgeous looking rig when it's finished. Build 8 THG. Close up of this beauty. Prime X570 series, white themed, to go with the 011D white Lian Li case. So this has everything on it that I need, including 3-pin headers for the aRGB, graphics card, PCIe slot, and that will give us plenty of room. So we're going to put the motherboard together to start with, using all the goodies. Giving up a collection of coolers. If anybody wants one, AMD cooler. Got a few. Okay, all parts at the moment, due to mining, very hard to get. So GPUs, CPUs, anything AMD, poor gamers out there are struggling, including myself. I just cannot get stock from around the world. A lot of this stuff not necessarily the CPU, but the GPU has been imported, and because of the import we do pay a little bit extra for it, but we get what we want. And for this build I'm taking particular care in the presentation of the piece. So that means the beneficiary, Tayla, is going to get a machine that is well put together, well thought out, with the components that we want. Now, we did want a Ryzen 9 because it's primarily going to be a gaming machine. This 8-core, 16-thread CPU is going to be sufficient for gaming. It will certainly do editing to a certain degree, crunching numbers or the CPU process. We can always wind it out if we need to, but the idea is to basically go 5950 Ryzen 9 in the future. I'll just switch the CPUs as they become available at a price that is affordable to everybody, especially the end user, the consumer. It's getting a bit out of hand. And I'll keep the black for the other one. I just need to insert. It's important that the actual nuts receiving the screw for the SSDs are located and tightened enough so that if you were to over tighten this top screw and then undo the whole lot, you're not winding out the entire thing from the motherboard. So that's the idea of doing a firm tightening. Right, now we don't have a cover for this one. I don't know why ASUS did that. Maybe they ran out of room. I don't know. Maybe it interfered with the TPM. I don't know. So we're going to put this on TV. Now the reason I put the 2TB down here and the black up there is, even though there's green, it is going to be obscured by the GPU coming over that point. So just thinking a bit about the presentation. A little bit. Much prefer to have a cover over it with a thermal pad. Whenever you're building a PC, fingernails seem to be a good thing. And heatsink for the 2TB. Some 3200 Vengeance Pro aRGB, of course. Okay, 32GB of RAM, Vengeance Pro, and 3200 motherboard done. Just be careful with any AMD processor that you are not bending pins, no forcing at all. I actually bent a pin. I had the right tweezers to straighten it up. Look vertical and look horizontal on a 2D, from a 2D perspective. Look both ways is what I'm saying. So you can see the pin in two directions that is straight, and then insert it. That one bent pin can stop your entire system from starting up, causing all sorts of grief. Motherboard done. Now, in case Tayla wants to use SSDs, either 2.5 or 3.5 inch SSDs in the future, or HDDs, then we can utilize these 4 slots. So these are actually hot swappable. You can actually pull one out, insert the drive, put it back in, and it will connect automatically to your operating system. Not always assign a drive letter, you have to do that manually in Windows. In Linux it's much easier, you can just mount the volume. But in Windows it takes a little bit to just go into computer management and add a drive letter to the volume if it doesn't do it automatically on the next restart of the machine. To give us room and space while we're building, I prefer to remove them so that they're in a safe place, they're not scratched or damaged, and they always maintain their usefulness in the future. There's lots of spaces in this machine to actually store SSDs, so the 2.5 inch, and we can even use these 2 slots, extra slots, PCIe slots, if we want to add a card in that could add multiple SSDs. So in the M.2, NVMe SSDs, we can get actually cards. In build 1 I installed a PCIe card with 2 SSD M2 NVMe drives, SSD drives on it, and that gives you more functionality, more speed, more read-write speed, that is, and very important if you're editing. So in the future, for adding drives, typically I'll put a PCIe card in with the actual slots, as opposed to the large drive mechanisms. However, if you're using one of these machines for storage, the HDDs are coming in 18 terabytes now, so massive size. I don't know where it's going to end with the actual physical HDD, the physical platters and drives. So we can actually have 36, 72 gig as terabytes, 72 terabytes of storage just in these slots alone, just with the technology that's available. So if you wanted storage in one of these, then you could basically just create that. You can create an array, a RAID array, off of the motherboard, off of the ASUS BIOS settings, and draw the 4 of them together. You can do a RAID 5 will give you basically 75% of the total, around about, give or take a bit, and you can end up with a very functional, redundant, make one of the actual hard drives redundant, so if one fails, then the other 3 will pick up the slack. So just wonderful functionality, and another reason why this case is just simply brilliant. It's a modern day case, and it has my favoritism. We'll store it for the time being. Work out what to do as we go along. I don't necessarily know the entire build yet. I may change my mind several times through the process. We'll also be seeking the owner's permission as well. So as I come up with ideas, if I come up with something that I think might look unique, I'll get Tayla's opinion as well. So she's happy with it, we'll go with it. We aim to please. forget about all these goodies. USB-C, and we can actually cater to that on this motherboard. No change elements. So we're aligning that to go directly with build 5, and then from this end into the distro plate. I might go the other end. Might change my mind, but I'm going to start by putting this radiator in the back end of following it. The actual inlet and outlet towards the back of the case rather than the front of the case. These are short pipe runs coming in. I might actually do something with the pipes a little bit different. The actual PETG tube, and I'll reserve judgment for that. Wait till we get the motherboard in, the distro block, then we'll go from there. Patience, dexterity, eventually we'll get there. Not a big fan of the Allen key head hexagonal screws. Much prefer Phillips heads, stars, whatever you like to call them, depending on what hemisphere you're from. We call them Phillips heads in Australia. I think it's a trade name from the Phillips head screwdriver. Stars. I'll just leave this temporarily in here with a couple of screws. Save a bit of time undoing it later on. You learn. Right, radiator in. Here for an ASUS. Everything you could wish for in a fan. First use. Who are you? Wing Boost. High Speed White Edition. Lovely little fans in a sec. But they come with 5V aRGB. aRGB. 3-pin. Connected to a SATA. Wonderful, and they have their own. That's the male. The female goes to the motherboard, and we can run the rest off of there. Strong gold in this one. Okay, 3 fans into the bottom one. CPU, motherboard, connection. I'll just test the GPU, make sure it's working. Motherboard. Fans, 4 lamps, 5 fans. Assuming these 3 don't work. Power. Okay, just a lesson I learnt a few builds ago. Never trust a power supply, no matter what the brand. The Gigabyte 750 that I was using got replaced, so good on you Gigabyte for doing that. Cost me an absolute small fortune to find out that it was a broken power supply. That was even after shipping back a motherboard. So yeah, you learn. So I'm just testing the actual power, making sure that the motherboard is feeding everything that it should be, fans, power supply, everything's starting up, so that's a good check. A good test. Before you start doing things like pulling your GPU apart for putting on a water block, which is what I'm going to be doing next, as soon as you touch a screw on one of these things, you avoid the wiring. As simple as that. I'm prepared to take the risk. I've done probably about 6 or 7 now. Never had an issue, but it is a finite control you have over them. Very careful with those things. Work as much as a computer. Not really. Seems. Price the GPUs is just stupid. You can thank the miners for that. I have tested the standard on my RTX 2880 Ti in mining, and it does okay actually, and you can actually pull some fair wattage off it, but when you're running a GPU at 100% for the entire time, it will take its toll on your graphics card. So for those people who are interested in mining, and yeah, you can get some income from it, you will burn your card out eventually, and much faster than what you want. Remembering that the resale value of these cards is going to hold for a long, long time. So yeah, you can upgrade. Let's say you start at a temporary card at the moment, one that's out, a 3060 Ti, so an RTX, an NVIDIA card, or an AMD 6800. So the retail price that you're paying for one of these at the moment, you're going to be getting that retail price back on a second-hand item in 12 months, in 24 months. So if you're upgrading from a 6800 to a 6800 XT, or even jumping up to a 6900 XT, or the next AMD or NVIDIA supercharged card, then you're going to be grateful that you're looking after these things. Don't overclock them too much. Don't burn them out too much. If you're gaming with them, then overclock to, let's say, 90%, and then see if that basically does anything for your gaming. If you're a competition gamer, then it may make a difference. But all you're succeeding in doing is just keeping this thing at a temperature exceeding 90 degrees. By water cooling, what we're doing is we're reducing the temperature to, let's say that 90 will drop down to about 60. That's about 1/3 is what I'm seeing as a standard temperature drop by putting a water block on them. So even if you're putting in an all-in-one, it's not as good as what custom water cooling is going to be doing, because you can control the total fan input and output, measure everything, and after you've done a dozen of these things, you start to realise that this is the way to go. for saving equipment, maintaining the cost of your unit. Good for upgrade too. I've used the Lian Li strimer cables. These are cable mods, just standard white for the power cables. and they're fantastic. Really good to use, and they look neat. So there's not absolute perfection in the cable itself, but it is attractive. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, wrapping. Okay, machine's posted. You know that it's up and running. Now it's coming through to the motherboard. So after wrapping, this is my most apprehensive moment, because wrapping is quite extensive in these little machines. And all the RGB. So let's have a look. Keep your fingers crossed. We've got 6 fans there, motherboard, RAM, and we've got the distro. That's what we want to see. And that's a wrap.
Feels good.
Hold on.
Ooh, I better film as well.
Oh,
Pretty colors.
you're so pretty.
Well, that's a good sign. At least it's posting. Let's survive the journey down.
Awesome.
The mechanism that I'll be putting in. Then I have to adjust this pipe here, and I'll probably spin that around.
It should be the centerpiece of the house when you walk in. And like any good grandchildren, I do like to be updated.
Oh yeah, I'll be messaging you probably constantly.
So any additions to the family, like a screen, send us a photo.
That white looks good. Oh. Yeah, I think that's on the graphics card.
Armory crane. Just click in reading to start with, and then you can go to static if you want, and then you can click on the camera.
Let there be white.
Boom.
It looks so clean.
The automatic watch that's stylized. It's kind of giving off the same vibes. You can see all the working parts, which is great.
Oh,
I like that you appreciate it. I really do. It's good. Okay.